morning, everybody. It is truly a blessing and a privilege to be here. And I'm glad that looks like quite a few of you had the opportunity to see War Room, and it was a blessing for me. It was an answer to a prayer, actually, that I had put up 13 years prior to getting the movie that God answered. So he does answer your prayers. Might not be when you want him to, but always, always right on time. The message is going to be quick here, but I hope it is a blessing. My mother was an alcoholic and a drug user, IV drug user. Father was an alcoholic. And so growing up, we saw some crazy. But God placed people around us that took care of us and spoke into our lives. And see, God is not a respecter of people. When he chooses to love you into existence, he does it with a purpose in mind. He's very intentional. And no matter what you've done or what someone has done to you or what someone calls you, you answer to fearfully and wonderfully made. That's what he calls you. You answer to the apple of his eye. That's what he calls you. You answer to my beloved. That's what he calls you. And the only one that can take you out of play for what God has for you is you. Now, I know a lot of people that grew up where I grew up, and their parents were like my parents, and they've fallen along the wayside. But see, I listened to what he said about me. And so I cling to the promises that he gave me, to what he said about me. Now, some of you weren't here last night, and I shared this little tidbit, and maybe it will be of some encouragement to some of you. Now, who has heard the saying, does anything good come out of Nazareth? We're not talking to any of the kids that were here last night. You've heard that? Yeah, do you know what it means? What does it mean? That's absolutely right. She said it was known not to be a good place. It wasn't known to produce good things. But see, I did a little bit of in-depth research. Nazareth was the hood. It was the ghetto. It was seriously the other side of the tracks. But there was this young girl there who wasn't the most popular. The Bible says nothing about her being the most beautiful, not the smartest, not the this or that. As a matter of fact, it doesn't say too much about those type of attributes that the world takes to be so important. But see, God being God and he knows everything, he knew that in that hood was this little girl named Mary. And he knew the condition of her heart for him. He knew that Mary would be the perfect one to bear his one and only son, the Savior of all mankind. So he went to the ghetto. He went to the hood through the angel Gabriel, who showed up to her one day and said, Mary, you have found favor with God. He has chosen you to give birth to his son. And now Mary was a human being. I know she loved the Lord, but she was still a human being. And I imagine all these different things were racing through Mary's head. But when she finally could speak, what she said put things into motion. She said, first, as we would in flesh, she said, well, how can it be? How can I bear this child? I haven't been married. I'm not betrothed to a man. I haven't had a relationship with a man. How can I bear a child? And then the angel Gabriel told her that the Spirit of God would overshadow her and she would conceive. And then what she said then put everything into motion. See, we get the word of God all the time. And we hear it and we can according to your word. So first Mary believed, and then she conceived. You have to believe the word in order to conceive and produce. So the flesh, the world would say, well, why would God go to the hood to find someone to be the mother of his one and only son, the Savior of all mankind? But as I said before, he knew the condition of her heart, and that's all that he cares about. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what's done, what has been done to you. None of that takes you out of play for what it is he has created you to do here, and you are here with great purpose. He could have made sure that you got here. You could have been born in the first century. You could have been born at the time that Jesus was born, but no, your being born here today means that he has given you something very, very specific for right now, for such a time as this. And if you don't complete it, it will never get done in the way that you can, because all of your experiences play into whatever it is he has for you to do here. So it won't get done, but someone else can do something similar. But it won't be done the way that he knows that you can do it. And all of your experiences come into play, and they make you a minister of sorts. So anyway, he chooses Mary. The world would think that, thinking in flesh, that he would have gone to a castle, chosen a princess who's known for her beauty across the land. The world would think that she would have been trained by the greatest scholars, that she would have been bathed in oils and milk, and that she had only had the finest fabrics touch her skin. But you see, with God, all of that means nothing. It means nothing. What meant something was the condition of her heart for the Father, her love for him, her availability to him. And when we are available, he will move through us. And that is why we're here. We're here to make this planet a better place. We're here to carry that message of hope. And the way that you do it will be different from somebody else's. So don't compete. Don't compare. Let us support each other. Every experience you've ever had will play into what he does through you. And always know that he chose to love you into existence. I think everybody in here is old enough to understand biology. Is that right? Because I'm going to go there a little bit, not a lot. Yeah, you are. Now, you get a man, you get a woman. They get together. And in the act, well, yeah, you're old enough. I guess I can say this. You know little sperm, they swim? And ladies, you have these eggs that are vying for position. Choose me, I go. Why not me? But see, what I believe upon Jesse's house. Now Jesse had several sons. He knew they were coming, so he had all the sons. They were dressed, and I'm sure they had on cologne. They were looking good. Hair was just so, dressed as so. And Samuel comes in the house, and he says, okay, let me see your sons. They're standing up. They're strong. They're handsome. They're buff. They're fine. Fine craftsmen. All of this. And he goes past. And on down the line. And he asked Jesse, he said, do you have another son? And Jesse said, well, I got another son. I mean, he's just, well, sure. He's just out there, he's in the field. He's a shepherd boy, but sure, you don't want him, you don't want him. Samuel says, call him in. And in walks this ruddy-faced, attractive, little scrawny, I'm sure he was wiry but strong young man, and he's standing there smelling like the sheep that he had been tending. And Samuel, they walk a little closer, and he's just there, and I'm thinking the Spirit of God was starting to quicken inside him, and maybe his heart is racing, because he could feel that anointing on this young man who had dirt smudges, and he probably stepped in some, yep, some sheep do. And he's just standing there, like, I want to go tend the flock. Okay, here I am. And Samuel walks over, and he recognizes this is the one. He goes over and he blesses him. And I'm sure that the strong, handsome brothers were like, what about me? What about me? But see, with David too, it was the condition of his heart. God knew who would be open and available to him. So it doesn't matter. And he became one of the greatest kings. He was never perfect, but he was one of the greatest kings that ever lived. And he became known as the man after God's own heart. He had his ups and downs. No one who walks on the earth is perfect. But look at what time it is. What thousands years, and everybody knows who David is. He loved the Lord, and the Lord loved him. So, opposite of what the world calls perfection, opposite of what the world calls beautiful, God is always looking at the available, the open to him, the condition of the heart. I encourage you all to let him use you. Yeah. I remember being so embarrassed when I was a little girl. I'd be doing plays, and I didn't know if my mother was going to come in drunk. Sometimes I just like, don't let her come. Because I never knew how she would come. But see, all of these things that the enemy uses, or that just life happens in life that can tear you down, don't let it tear you down. Because then one day, God knew when he chose to love me into existence, that this little girl, whose mother was an IV drug user and whatever else, and her father was an alcoholic, terrible reputation, he knew that he had chosen me to take the message of prayer around the world. I get emails from people all over the world. There was a gentleman from Arabia, a Muslim, who wrote a letter, and he sent it via the Kendrick brothers. He wanted it to come to me, and his question was, how can I teach my son to pray like that? But see, when God is using you, when we allow him to work through us, all things are possible. So don't let what somebody has called you that is negative define who you are. Don't let a past experience or maybe your struggle today define who you are. What defines who you are is what you answer to. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am a child of the Most High God. I can do all things through Christ who is my strength. No weapon formed against me will ever prosper. That same power belongs to you, young man. You go and you change this world. And I say that to each and every one here. Change the world. You're here with great purpose.